Hey guys, this is C from toptwopercentdotnet, and today we're going to be taking a look at a ZvT on Tal'Darim Malter. This is just the ladder edition of the map. This is just a ladder game, but it shows how I like to play my Zergris Terran pretty well. Everything goes fairly standard. I'm in the top right, my opponent's in the bottom left. It's cross positions just by chance, and the positions that I would prefer to play on, as most Zergs would tell you, just a lot more fun to play on, longer games, better macro. So there's a few things to note about the map while the game sort of warms up here. You've got a lot of potential for Blue Flame Hellions or Reactor Hellion openers, just because the map's big. Almost like every game you're going to get a Hellion opener of some sort, so you can kind of preemptively make a spine, or maybe delay your scout or something if you're at the level you feel comfortable doing that, and sort of losing out on some information. There's a few different abuses on the map that Terran can do to Zerg. Like a drop up here with Marines or one siege tank. It's kind of hard to hold off. A side note is a good thing to do is maybe drop some creep here and make a spine crawler, and you're using the overlord that's dropping creep for vision, so you've got a little bit of time bought there doing that. You've also got this little nook here that Terran will put siege tanks, Marines in, elevate some Marines up, and that can usually snipe your hatchery if you're not too quick about getting it taken care of. I find it very difficult to hold if you use banelings and lings, so I play Infestor ling versus all Terrans. I don't like mutiling baneling at all. I find it very difficult to do any sort of damage versus a good player, and a lot of it seems to be left to chance, or left to my opponent, not splitting perfectly. If my opponent plays perfectly, I'll do almost no damage to him with that build, whereas Infestor, if they don't split perfectly, you can still do some damage, and I like how quickly you can get the tech elevated, and how fast you can sort of advance to hive tech while holding most pressures pretty easily. So that's just my preferred build. I'm not saying mutiling baneling is bad or anything, but I can't seem to make it as cost efficient as Infestor ling and eventually Ultralisk or Broodlord will work. So we have my opponent throwing down his factory. And, obviously, yeah, it's going to be Reactor Hellion opening. I've just gone for an average timing pool with average timing gas and average timing speed, so 14, so I get my gas, I get my speed, take gas off gas, don't need them there anymore. First Queen's out, and I will be moving out from my hatchery. I make a good pass here on the SCV, so he can't double back and block me, and I get the hatchery down no problem. I like to go for the speed first, because it seems like every time I go hatch first, someone proxy barracks me or something. There's a lot of ways to be aggressive on this map, because it's very hard to scout where the barracks is, or where your opponent is in time, if you're just an average Zerg trying to defend. So I'd rather just not deal with the pressure, and go for the lings a little bit earlier, go for the speed a little bit earlier to try and keep up. You don't lose very much economy for the amount of comfort I gain out of it, because it is just a ladder game in this case, and I don't really know what I'm up against or what kind of player. So I'd rather play it safe than rage over nothing. I'm going for the preemptive spine crawler here. If you look at my vision, I do know that there's Hellions here, and I did harass it a little bit with some lings, but that's, it's just doing damage to force an SCV. So as Hellions are heading out, my hatch isn't done, so I can't quite move the spine crawler yet. But once it's made, you can move it a bit early because they're so slow off of creep. I like to split my lings up. I like to keep a handful here, and just 2 or 4 here, so I can sweep in, maybe get us around like this. So that did basically nothing. It's a really, really good way to start the game. Right off the bat, that is really strong. That puts me substantially ahead. And because I didn't lose any lings, I can afford to go ahead and make 5 drones, 4 drones, 6 drones, as many drones as I feel like. And in the meantime, my spine crawler has been moved up. So opponent's expanding behind this, and again, just run a few lings, try and do some harass. He's already had a supply drop, which may be part of the build, or maybe he's just bad. I don't really know. He's going to go for the depot wall off here. Is really, really standard Terran. Want to reduce surface area for basically everything Zerg does. Nothing too out of the ordinary. And a few more Hellions are moving out. I send 2 of those to go scout, and they tell me what's up. you'll find taking the watchtowers versus Hellions on any map very difficult, so it's almost worth it just to keep the lings and not bother. And I try and play very greedily and use my control to my advantage. Not to say I have, you know, incredible god mode control, but I think I'm pretty good. So I very rarely will make roaches versus Hellions, even if it ends up being Bluefin Hellion. I'm still fully convinced that if I play perfectly, I can hold it with just lings and queens and just fine. Not necessarily the best strategy, but I do like that it forces me to play harder. I have to really try and make my units worth their cost, so it helps me improve instead of just defaulting to Roach. Roaches carry fairly well into the mid game. They're great if you send them out early with your lings and banelings or whatever you're using. They'll take siege fire really well, but I want to save the cost and just not make them, not waste the drone. So try and be as greedy as possible if you feel comfortable with it. And if you have a Smurf account like some people do, just put yourself in bad positions. Like, you know, hatch first on a map you don't think you can handle, and, you know, don't make those roaches, and just sort of test yourself and see how far you can push your units to work for you. Because Hellions counter lings, and I'm trying to hold with just lings. On creep, obviously, they're going to be a lot better. Now, one thing that I'm messing up on is these lings should be immediately on this rock. This rock should be close to dead by now. Try and be really aggressive about taking that down. So I've left a few of the lings from earlier to sit here and sort of poke in, see what's going on, see the enemy base. Nice and easy, it's got some Hellions, but I can't really do much with that. So I'm going to go set them over here, maybe poke in later. Even though I know Hellions are on their way, I'm going to make a bunch of drones, keep making drones. I'm getting my carapace first, because versus Terran, I'm going to pause here. If you get, some people like to do melee first, I don't really. I like carapace first, no matter what build I'm doing, because it stops lings from dying in one shot to siege tank, and on any ling heavy build, but mainly infestor ling, you're going to need that, especially because most of your enemies' pushes are going to come before infestors are out, and you're going to be holding with pure zergling. It sounds ridiculous that you'll probably be able to hold siege tank marine and maybe a medvac or two with just zerglings, but you can do it if you get a good sound or not. So I'm trying to work the rocks down. Hellions are gonna get a bad trade here. Gonna lose more than I want to stuff I shouldn't. Sooner or later. I mean, I end up losing lings, but be careful with your creep teamers, especially too. When there's Hellions out, it's just a pain to have to remake them. My layer timing is I go for carapace about. Alright, well, if we'll take a breather here. Okay, so I get for build order, so people that love the whole build order and timing deal, I go by the flow of the game, but some people need the order. I go, let's say 14 pool, or 14 gas, 14 pool. I get my speed, then I'm going to grab all my guys off of gas, just take them, set them on minerals. Some people like to leave one, I don't take any. Now my timing to put guys back on gas and get my evo chamber is when Hellion production starts. That's when I put 3 guys back on 1 gas and I grab my evo chamber. Then I grabbed carapace first. You can, sort of depending on what build you're doing, your second, third, and fourth gases are kind of up to you. I'll take maybe my second gas when carapace is about at half maybe or so. It all really depends what you want to do. Nothing's written in stone here. And then I'll get my lair as soon as I can afford it. I want a quick lair because I need those infestors out. As long as you take your third and fourth gas, pretty soon after you've taken your second, you'll have enough for infestors, enough to keep upgrades. And whether or not you want to go a faster double evo or save it a bit for lair, that's all stylistic. It's up to you, up to the pace of the game. But if you need the numbers of how I like to open, that would be it. And then the rest is just sort of based around how the game goes. I like to get ultras around 17-18 minutes, so I do go for a pretty early hive, but we'll take a look at that when I get there. So my macro's been slipping a little bit. I've missed an inject. I've been too busy dealing with Hellions, just pathing around here. If we looked at my opponent here, he's got his wall in and not a whole lot of units, just sort of a few marines. He's got stim on the way. Eventually heading into starport because he wants to go for one of the abusive pushes. Back to my base, trying to get a good surround on these. Don't be afraid to run your lings a little bit too long. And here's where I lose too much. I should have split these up a bit better. But you can run your lings past and around the Hellions. Don't feel like you're missing out on attacker time, because if you get this around, you're guaranteed to kill. And if you just attack, you know what, they might kill a few lings and then go home and repair, and you've effectively done nothing. So you kind of need to like have an all-in mentality with that. Either get this round or you don't even bother with it. So I have melee 1 on the way. I get melee 1 as soon as carapace is done, usually on the same Evo chamber, but here I'm going a bit more aggressive. I got a quick carapace 2, which is really risky because that's such an expensive upgrade. That's for me personally the most awkward upgrade in the game to fit into any build because it's so expensive. But I'm gonna play really greedy here and I'm gonna do it. But it's consequently slowing down my pathogen glands a little bit. I get Burrow about when Lair finishes too, and I like to get the Evo chamber as soon as Lair finishes. Burrow you can be a bit, you can let it slip a little bit and get it a bit later if you want, but I like to have it for my infestors, because at least if they're in a bad position it forces a scan and you can bother tanks with it. I mean, I always get Burrow, but you know, give or take 30 seconds, it's not a complete game changer. I have my spine here, which I will end up rerouting over here fairly soon. And now be active on the map. I was running to look at these, and I say, like, holy crap, push is coming. I've also got my Overseer, and I know, I really like that my Overseer is here while his army is here, because this means I'm going to get a great scout of his base out. And I'm going to see, he's got Evo chambers running, he's going to expand all this. But for now, focus your attention over here. If you're going to attack something, make sure you're looking at it. Don't just attack and scout. You have to focus your units. So crank this down into normal so you get a good look. I can handle this a bit better, but I take the spine crawler, I reroute it, I really want to focus the tank down because I know he's going to do that. I'm going to end up trading my queen for a siege tank, which I have to do. Because I'm just holding with lings for now. I got a macro hatch about halfway through Lair, which I think I already went over in another video, but I can produce off that, and I can produce off this shortly, so not all is lost. I run my drones away. This is the stuff you don't get too carried up. He's going to do it. I'm sure you're going to lose an extractor. You might lose half your hatcheries on it. If the hatch isn't dead, you can mine from it. It's fine. I've got a ton of zerglings here, though, because my production is just through the roof on the hatch. Now I'm going to go take this tiny little forest, and I'm just going to run right into it and kill it. My infestor control here is a little bit iffy. I really want to get a fungal on these to reduce casualties. These end up, and then I get these one or two. And then from here, I've still got the mining over here, and it's just mining a bit farther, or I can just keep them at this base if I want. But the hatch wasn't finished when I rallied, and I don't want to risk just rallying drones to something that can mine while risking my entire army. So focus on your units. As stupid as it sounds, don't be like, I moved my zerglings, let's look at what my overseer saw. You know, it's not about that. You gotta make sure everything's cost efficient. After this engagement, armies have been traded, units have been lost. I'm immediately teching to Hive and making 20 drones here. I'm also grabbing Zerg attacks too for melee. You can be really greedy after an engagement like this, not only just because I still have some units if there's a follow-up, but because he's lost his army, he doesn't want to overextend himself if he knows what he's doing. So there you go, I'm going to make drones, going to play all economy, try and expand pretty shortly, and my opponent is going to do the same. If you just think, like, if he pushes out with this force, by the time it gets to your base, it's dead. I could take all these zerglings, counterattack, and hold with the infestor's energy by the time this gets there. So as soon as an engage is done, do the greediest things you can think of. Double expand or something crazy. If we look at my opponent's tech here, he's going to get some more factors, just meeting up for requirements. He's a little bit sluggish in the upgrades, and I play very aggressive upgrades, so it's going to end up hurting him. I do want to deal with this medvac a little bit. I can drop spine crawlers here because I've got a lot of money. Zergling Infestor is pretty good at cleaning drops up, because if the medvac gets in range of a fungal, it's done, and all the units are dead. So you can have pretty good stability there. So Hive's just finished. Hive upgrades are really expensive. Try and fit them in. Next to Carapace 2 is obviously Carapace 3, but by the time you have Carapace 3, you're going to have the economy to afford buying it, so it's not that hard of a decision. Just get it when you can. My expansion is a little bit slow here. I think it could have been a bit quicker. I'm going to go ahead and grab Carapace 3 and Adrenals. Just because like fuck it, what's he gonna do about it? You know, I've got tons of lings and infestors. This can hold off basically whatever he has if he's just going marine tank. I can be as greedy as I want. So he's dropped me here. He's also dropped my base. I cancelled it. And over here, he's taking a few drones out. Just doing some decent harassment. Now, I could do an entire thing about harassment, but basically, in my opinion, the moment you lose a unit or take heavy damage, like red, I mean, it sounds like they can be healed, but like let's say a Zergopros unit, or take heavy damage on a unit, your harass has no longer been harassed, it's become a trade. Even just a minor trade, it's still become a trade. We'll see a good example of harass later on over here. But as soon as you start losing units, or units take too much damage, you're now in a position where you are trading. A harass is where you've lost absolutely nothing, but you've just done free damage. If I can look at the unit's lost tab and it's changed and yours hasn't, then there you go, you've done a successful harass, which is a lot harder to pull off than a lot of people think. So I've got my Ultralisk Cavern. I know I should on Ultras, and a lot of people should on Ultras, but you kind of, they're great. I'm ahead a lot, maybe not a lot, but enough that I can afford them. And with all the upgrades I have going here, my Ultras are going to be stacked. Like 20 minutes into the game, I'm going to be out upgrading them just colossally. Especially with fungal growth, when Ultras actually land hits, they do tremendous versus Marine Marauder. The biggest problem is that they just don't seem to land hits much. So here's where I'm trying to drop the creep and use for high ground with my Spine Crawler, so we can get some pokes in. But I happen to take my Infestors over. Because the Terrans are a bit far away, but with a little bit of micro, I clean up this drop. And we see that he is moving out. Now, I have a big flaw here. I don't have a Zergling here. I don't have the towers, or a Changeling or something. That's a big mistake. That's not good by me. He's got a pretty good force here. If he got his armory a bit earlier, he should be like 2-2 around here, I would expect. But that's alright. He's got a lot of units. So I see this. I'm going to take that out. I'm maxed. He's pretty close. He wants to rush the fungal. He gets fungal. And here we go, just rush in, charge. Good fungal here, traps all the stuff. And this is not the most cost efficient trade that I could ask for, but it was really good. It was enough to be comfortable and take out some extra medics on there. So now I'm at 167, just made a ton of Zerglings, a few more Infestors. Don't get too carried away with Infestors. You can't talk about Infestors without talking about Destiny, but you know, he makes he used to make just stupid amounts of Infestors, like way too many. Just make a few, maybe like 8 or so, enough so that if you get an EMP, you at least have a fungal growth or two. But I mean, you shouldn't be getting EMP in the first place without a good split. But I mean, you know, in the heat of battle, you might just happen to do it, so, you know, shit happens. But you'd rather have supply up in fighting units as opposed to just casters, because these guys on their own are quite weak versus, like, a Marine or 2 Marines stemmed can just wreak havoc, as kind of stupid as it sounds. So let's see, I've droned up pretty well. I've got good saturation here. I'm taking another base over here as well, because we just had an engagement. And I'm going to go for... It's too late to call it a counterattack, but an attack. No, I would expect him to have this, but he's taken this. So, I don't know. I think he would have more bases by now. This is going to be basically like the perfect harassment. Not to toot my own horn or anything, it just so happens to go that way. Just by sheer chance. In production, by the way, I've started my Spire as well. So he lives, and kill all the SCVs. I don't go to attack this, I leave. There you go. I've swept in, lost nothing of my own, taken 0 damage, and killed like 20 some SCVs. That's that. I literally could not have asked for a better predicament. If I pushed into this, yeah, sure, I probably could have clobbered it, but like, I don't know, why risk a lead? Zerg can lose games very easily to just awkward stuff. Like, who knows? Maybe he has like 4 barracks here and a bunch of siege tanks, and I don't know, you know, crazy things can happen. So even though I'm pretty far ahead, I've got all the ideal units, and so I'm still going to get my Roach-Warren. I'm still going to get missile attacks, just in case. I just like to have everything. I've got enough money that it doesn't matter. I'm buying like cheap upgrades, cheap everything, it's fine. Here I get dropped, and Zerg units are pretty quick, so I think I'm going to save this about 2 battle bosses. We get into a little bit of crazy harass here. So I take my Infestors. I want to fungal this, and I want to be able to contend with this as well. And then, you know, a little bit of micro war here, because that's basically the only thing Terran can really do at this point to get back in the game. The game was lost I don't want to say completely lost, because here wasn't that bad a trade. Here wasn't that bad a trade. But he's substantially behind. I guess maybe his macros just slipped. I think, really personally, I think it was just the 2-2 when he forgot the armory. I think that is where the game was lost. You can usually find one overarching sort of motif of what went wrong. If he did that same push with 2-2, I would have been able to clean it up, but it would not have been nearly as clean as it was. Well, I mean, it wasn't that clean, but it wouldn't have been as overwhelming. So I'm getting my Greater Spire, because, you know, tech switches are a lot of fun. Gonna get Roach speed, just because. And he's got nothing to really repair this planetary, so he's gonna take it down, and I'm going to leave. Again, that was a trade. You know, I maybe lost some Zerglings to the planetary there. Okay, that was a trade, but it was a great trade, but it's still a trade. Here, I was really thinking while I was playing that his army might be around here, because I kept seeing SCVs come through, and I thought, you know, one of these is going to be a Marine, and shit's going to hit the fan. But no, I managed to get up pretty safely. And he's built up another really strong force. He's got Marauders. Marauders are awesome versus Infestor, Ling Ultra. Infestors are armored, so they basically just get one shot. They have good health. They last versus Lings. Great unit. I'm getting speed as well for my Overlords. And over here, he miscontrols a bit. If you just move command like a retard, this will happen. This looks okay, but I'm not going to take it because my Infestors are all the way over here trying to defend this drop if it comes back, or anything else if it comes back. Which he did drop, but I got Spines and a Queen, so life's good, we're alright. I want to take the high ground up here, and I got a massive, massive stim out of him, so all his shit is hurt. The energy's going to be a bit lower. I'm maxed in the half, making Broodlords. Again, just garbage control. Or if the game wasn't already lost, which I still maintain that it was, it is now. Awkward angle for me here. These Marauders really get some good use out of them. I still get some bubbles to keep them in place. And, you know, Thor's doing good damage. These Infestors should move forward a bit more. They're going to take the tanks out. We did some cutesy fucking Thor micro. Which I was furious that these guys didn't have any fungal growth, or I would have killed that all, but, you know, what are you going to do? I'm going to remax on power units here. I got a few Broodlords just kicking around here. I've got some Ultras making. Again, I want to deny. I want to keep him from mining. I know the game's over. Like, it's so over. But that's no reason to just sort of slip on mechanics. You know, it's good practice. So he's still mining from here. I'm going to try and stop him from mining. Simple things. Over here, he's dropped those Thors, taking out my hatch, and this Ultra came. The Broodlings just fuck shit up. Again, this engage isn't actually perfect, because I don't have any Zerglings. This just shows the power of Stim Marauders in the corners. Really did work on my Ultras, even though his upgrades are so lacking. But we've got enough invested terrans, so just sort of have at. This is going to go down, spoiler alert, and yeah, he doesn't have anything. Game's done. So if we just sort of look around while it continues, I'm still gonna, my macro has admittedly slipped pretty heavily. Another big flaw was not getting upgrades on here. I should have had Carapace going as soon as possible. My sort of rule of thumb for upgrades is I like to go Carapace versus Terran and attack versus Protoss. I mean, it's generally pretty situational, but I kind of like to do that just as a guideline. We got my Broodlord Crass going on in the back. We got Ultras, Broodlords, Infestors. I mean, that's what as zergy as you get when you just choose this out. So, that was a really standard game. My opponent played decently, but I think his the big flaw was not getting the 2-2 on time. For if you're gonna have double Ingi bays, you like better make them useful. Like if you're investing in that and the time and the resources to get 1-1 quickly, you have to have 2-2 going pretty quick as well. It just makes all the difference in the world. Marines become so much more cost efficient. Everything just becomes more devastating. And if he would have had, like, in the last engage, although it was kind of sloppy by both of us, we didn't have great concaves either or. But if his Marauders were like 3-3 or something, you know, it might have not been so bad. It might have at least extended the game longer. Terran can make... You'll see Terran stay in the game, usually Terrans, longer than other races, because they just have the potential to, you know, maybe a 16 Marine drop here, there, and wherever. If they kill all 3 of your mining bases, if you're mining on 3, you're probably going to lose. Like, that's just how it goes. You'll probably just lose. So never underestimate how a Terran can come back. They can do some pretty obnoxious stuff. So if you look at here, he's got his 1-1. doesn't have. There's the armory, and yeah, it's like it's not super late, but it's late. And then the upgrades here are late too. His macro's really good though so far. Like, I mean, his money's really low. Is what I'm saying. For me, my money and co is very, very high. Now, it is that way because I like to, I don't say like completely cut, but I slow down on infestor production, or I make sure I keep my infestors alive. So when it's time for ultras, I don't pop one or two ultras. I want to pop like a ton of ultras. It's the same thing as for anything in Zerg. When like there's a tech en route, when well, sort of speaking of which, on a side note, when pathogen glands is about 45 seconds done, you can make your infestors there, and they'll pop out with the pathogen gland upgrade. Just to clear up, some people don't know. If they think if you like start it there without the upgrade, they won't have it when they come out. Well, they do. If you start at 45 seconds or so, you're all right. So like for that pathogen timing, you want to make a bunch of infestors in that time. Ultra timing, same thing. Upgrades. I'd rather relocate to Carapace 3, like the most fucking expensive thing in the world, than just buy more infestors, which just aren't that good. Like, a lot of infestors isn't good. You need a lot of supporting units for infestors. I'm just trying to get back to that this engage here. I'd really like to take a look at. He doesn't have armor 2 on the way. I mean, yeah, I know, it's okay, cat. Like, he's got armor upgrades down, whatever. But I just can't stress how important that is. Like, how differently that engage could have gone. Even though I am on ultra tech, which, like, at this point, you know, I'm really, really ahead. But this is a lot of stuff. This many Marines can do some serious damage. He's got a great tank count. This isn't perfect. I didn't see this in this. I just smuggled because I thought there was a drop. This was a bad mistake running all these units. Loses a bunch. But it lets him get more tank shots. Pumping yourself up on that and loses. So if you look at units lost here, I end up getting rid of these. These end up going down as well. So I got really, really good out of that. In most games, you're going to see Zerg as, like, units or resources lost. Well, more mainly resources, like, not way, but a bit down. It's just expected, just because that's how Zerg works. But I find infestors can just make the game more efficient for Zerg. You can trade a lot better. And I would rather, like, completely clobber a push than just sort of kill it. If you clobber a push, you can counterattack, you can tech off it. Like this, I end up going really, really aggressive tech. I also make a ton of lings because I want to end up pushing him back as well. But I work with what I have. I try and, you know, buy the expensive units because there's time to spend. That's pretty much it, I guess. It's really standard game, nothing too crazy. He drop harassed a bit, and, you know, deal with it how you feel comfortable. If you need spines down, if you're like, I don't want to shit on you, but if you're like a lower level player, so and you need the spines, then do the spines. If it's super like later game, I would consider this already later game just because of how many bases I have. Make spines because you're not going to be everywhere at once. You've got a lot of money, put it on important stuff. Make like a circle of spines around your greater spire or something. Just do stupid shit so that they can't do stupid shit, you know? You have to kind of play as obnoxious as they are. I mean, if you're in the mentality that, you know, I'd rather have, you know, one more ultra than like 4 spines, I mean, that's good and all, but if that's what ends up costing you the game from like a 16 Marine drop, then, you know, that's not really what you're supposed to be doing. I just want to stay alive. I want to kill my opponent. I don't want to, well, I want to play perfect, but I don't want to risk the game for perfection. That's, I mean, that's what you're ideally working on, but 1 or 2 spine crawlers is probably not going to lose you the game from missing 1 ultra. It's probably going to save you the game, if anything, so don't be afraid to build it. Last notes, transfuse if your macro slips like mine does. This build, by the way, is very, very micro intensive. You're going to be all over the goddamn place trying to make sure your ultras are in a good arc, make sure you're controlling your lings, not your ultras, controlling your infestors, not your lings. So you're gonna inevitably miss a few injects, and that's fine because ultras are so expensive. You transfuse it, you got another unit. Even if you got all the money in the world, transfuse stuff. If there's time, just do it. And always have a macro hatch for this build. Halfway through your lair is best timing, always. I don't care how little or how much money you have. And another last thing before we end this is macro hatch on this map it's kind of tricky, but you think that, okay, well, I can get my third reasonably quick. Wow, this queen has so much energy. That's really bad. You think you're going to get your third really quick, which you're probably going to, but the problem is, I find when I tried to cut the macro hatch in favor of a quicker third, is that you're going to end up finding time to drone this. If you're good at droning and you just crunch and engage really hard, you'll fill this up with drones, and then you'll say, well, shit, I need a macro hatch, and then you're going to have to wait through the entire duration to get the macro hatch up. It's not worth it. You can get the macro hatch, even if it's at the exact same time you get your third, just do it anyway. It pays off. You can't play this build without a macro hatch. It won't happen. You will not be able to do it. You will just lose. You won't be able to hold production. That's the sole reason I was able to kill that first push so early, because I had just astounding amounts of lings. It was from macro hatch. So there you go. Just do it. Macro hatch doesn't mean your macro is shitty. It means you want to build more stuff faster because your macro is good, so you can spend larva quicker. That's about it though. That's how I like to play versus Terran. Try it out if you're a mutiling player. You might find you like it. I find you a better control because you can target groups with the infestors, whereas banelings, a lot of people are used to splitting, whereas they're not used to playing against infestors as much. Not to say it's really gimmicky, but you get a bit more control of how your units use their abilities. That's all for now. If you guys have any questions or stuff like that, feel free to comment or message me or something, and I'm more than glad to help you out because this is what this whole project's about. So thanks for watching. Cheers.